early childhood development. Each week we talk about a different stage of children development and what children need. And now, here comes your host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Taryn, and you are listening to The Parent Thing. Today, we are getting right into part 2 of our mini-series. I mentioned last week that it's going to be a 3-part mini-series, but it looks like it may be a little more than that. I'm looking at about 7 episodes. Shall we go with that? So 7 episodes in a series that speaks about behavior, and it's basically a build up to an episode on discipline. This week's episode is titled Great Expectations because often parents have just that, great expectations of their children, which often is unrealistic expectations. Children are born with 2 instincts that are vital for survival. One is to suck, the other is to cry. We don't expect them to pop out and be able to walk like some other mammals do. That would be unrealistic. I have found that, for the most part, the first 12 months are the best as far as expectations are concerned. Not much is expected of infants, and any new development or milestone that they reach is celebrated. When they start walking, that's when it starts going downhill. Fundamentally, a child does not understand the concept of right and wrong. And this is a phrase you are going to hear me repeat a lot over the next few weeks. From the age of about 3 plus, like 3 and up, that's when they start developing a sense and a concept of, ooh, this is right and I shouldn't be doing this. I do, however, find that there is an expectation from parents for them to inherently know the difference between right and wrong. As humans, their inherent nature is to flock to the wrong, and I've got wrong in air quotes, you just can't see me doing it. To them, it's an exploration, and it's not wrong. The purpose of today's episode is to break down some of what you can expect from children between the ages of 0 to 3, 4, 5. And next week we will tackle the wrong behaviors. And again, wrong is in air quotes, so just pretend you could see me do that. I mentioned earlier that this episode is about what you can expect from your child. This is talking about realistic expectations, and I will be breaking it down in the form of milestones and breaking it up into, or rather segmenting it into age groups. Okay, let's start from birth to 6 months. I'm going to go through some of the basic developmental milestones you can expect from infants between the ages of 0 and 6 months. The thing you should expect the most in this age bracket is sleep. The more sleep they get, the better, but as they get older, their sleep pattern will change and they will start sleeping a little less as they start exploring a little more. You can expect them to progress from having a bobble head in tummy time to being able to lift their head and chest up using their arms for support. So the stronger they get, the easier this will be. In this age period, they start rolling over too. And when they start rolling over, it will be from their tummies to their backs, and that's it. That's a wrap. That's where it ends. Put them back on their tummy and they'll be able to roll back onto their backs. And then as they get older and as they get stronger, they'll be able to roll over again back onto their tummies. So that is a progression. If they are laying on their backs and you put your thumbs in each hand, they would grip because they learn to grip at this age. So they'd grip really tightly, and you'll see that from about 3, 4, 5 months, they'll start pulling themselves up towards you to try and sit when you hold their hands like that. So You put your thumbs in their grasp and you hold the rest of their little hands with your other four fingers just to give them that base of support. And as they get stronger and stronger, you'll see that they do try and lift themselves up into a sitting position. This is such a great core exercise for them, believe it or not. Essentially, it's like a sit-up. So the more you do that with them, the stronger their core gets. It's a really, really good idea, and they really enjoy it. In this age bracket, they start sitting without support. This is closer to the 6-month mark, where they will start sitting up on their own without support. For the most part, when they just start sitting, they will lean forward a lot, so their legs is a base of support for them. And as they get stronger, they'll sit upright. Babies this age have the best posture. From about 3 months, they will start reaching for objects within their grasp, or what they perceive to be in their grasp, because visual perception, hand-eye coordination, and spatial awareness starts developing at this age. They start grasping and reaching out for, and you'll see that their hands will wobble as they try to get where they need to go. In this period, I would like to encourage you to not move it closer to them. So if you're holding an object out in front of them and you see that their hands are coming and there's a little bit of struggle of getting to it, I suggest that you do not put it closer to their hands, because that then defeats the purpose of them figuring it out. So if you just hold it, patiently wait for them, eventually they will figure out how to get to where the object is. They will start grasping things with their whole hands. And the reason they grasp with their whole hand is because at this point, they do not have control over their thumbs just yet. The forefinger grasp is where most of the strength is coming from, and the thumb just happens to be closing. It's only later that they start discovering their thumbs and how to use it. We spoke about them reaching for and grabbing objects with their whole hands. Once it's in their hands, it's going to the mouth. This is what babies this age do. So be very careful with what you give or allow your baby to grasp onto, because it 100% is going to the mouth. Even just their hands. My personal favorite thing that a baby this age does is they discover their feet, and their feet go in their mouth. There is nothing cuter to me. It is my favorite thing, and anybody who knows me knows this. As they reach the 6-month mark, they will start holding things with one hand and start passing things from one hand to another. They start holding their own bottles at this point. If they use a pacifier, they start finding it or discovering where to find it and putting it in their mouth even when they don't need soothing. It is just a skill that they learn. They, at this age, start easing into routines. And when they are in a routine, they start anticipating feeding times or bath times by getting excited. This makes me think of my nephew, the one who made me an aunt. So my sister's eldest son. When he was little, she had a bath time routine with him. She allowed us to do everything else. We could play and feed and put to bed, whatever, but bath time was hers. The routine that she had with him was to start singing the song that she made up, and she'll just go, "Do you know what time it is?" And when he was like from the age of about 4 or 5 months, when he heard those words, the excitement that he had, the hands and the feet would just like up and down and flail, like just uncontrollable excitement, because he knew what was coming. He absolutely loved bath times, and that was her bonding time with him as well. He knew his routine, he knew what was coming, and he was here for it. They definitely are aware of routine and anticipate routine at this age. They also start reacting to visual and auditory stimuli. So that's exactly what I was just saying. When my sister would start singing, "Do you know what time it is?" he reacted to that because he knew what it meant. When you are about to give them their bottle or it's feeding time and they see the food, you start seeing the excitement in them, and that starts developing at around 5-6 months as well. From about 6 weeks, you will start seeing smiling, and they start engaging in cooing. They start laughing as they get older, so you start seeing the development of little personalities, real personalities in these little but whole human beings. They also start recognizing and become comfortable with familiar faces around the 6-month mark. I really could do an episode on each age group and all their developmental milestones and what to expect. But because I am doing everything in one episode, I am really just choosing the very big ones that I feel need to be discussed. So we are going to move on to the 6 to 12 month mark now. This is where they start sitting up independently for longer periods of time, and they can put themselves in a sitting position from laying down, from crawling, which means that in this age bracket, they start crawling too. And I am going to have a whole episode on the importance of crawling at some point. At about 6 months, you can start introducing them to solid foods. Introducing babies to solid food also needs an episode of its own, so that is definitely on the planning list, on the to-do list. Moving on to their milestones, you can expect them to start pulling themselves up to stand and to walk along furniture as they progress to start walking. They will have at this age an attachment to a primary caregiver, even when there are many people that they are comfortable with and many people that they do recognize. There is an attachment that forms to a primary caregiver. They learn to clap hands in this age bracket. They learn to wave. They learn to point. They start babbling. This actually makes me think of a current student who is learning online. Her mom has opted for her to be a distance learner, and she has a baby sister that comes to school with her sister every day, and she has just turned a year old. She is so interactive on the lessons. Like, my whole class has fallen in love with this baby. The kids look forward to seeing her because she claps her hands and she waves and she babbles and she has fat conversations with us. It is the cutest thing. I digress. We go back to the developmental milestones. At this age, you can expect them, while they're crawling or walking, to move towards something that they want and be able to change direction. So again, this is that spatial awareness I keep talking about, where they see where something is in relation to where they are and learning how to make themselves get to it or avoid something that they don't want to bump into. Their social personalities develop more and more, and it becomes more evident. They have a full personality at this point. They also start responding to their name between the ages of 6 and 12 months. Ironic though, because I always joke and say, when they hit about the 12-month mark, they know their names. But this is where confusion sets in, because they will start thinking that their name is actually no, don't do that, or don't touch that. Because that's when all those phrases start becoming a norm. They enjoy games at this point. And games to them is banging things, shaking things, throwing things, dropping things. And they also enjoy toys that move and make a noise. They move from babbling to starting to form words. And this is where the age-old competition of mama and dada comes in. Either or is the first word that babies start saying at this age. Again, between 6 and 12 months, they start mimicking sounds and gestures. So their babbling, as I said, starts becoming more sensical than nonsensical. They enjoy music. They enjoy singing. They enjoy huge, big, dramatic animated gestures, peekaboo games. Dropping something dramatically will get a good laugh out of them, because they do find a lot of things funny at this age. You'll also find that separation anxiety becomes more evident. As I mentioned before, they start forming an attachment to a primary caregiver. And so when this primary caregiver leaves, there is a separation anxiety. So you can expect a lot of tears when they are feeling anxious because of separation. They show a lot of affection, lots of hugs and wet kisses, and they start teething anywhere from 6 months, sometimes sooner, but more often than not from about 6 months. Every baby teethes differently, but you can expect them to be very miserable, to run fevers. Some babies have runny tummies. It looks different for everyone, but it is not a pleasant experience most of the time. We take a stroll and move on over to the 12 to 18 month marks. Here they should be walking confidently, running at this point. Play some music and you're gonna get a bounce, you're gonna get a dance. This is usually a favorite thing for them to do. So they dance, they start climbing, and they can also squat down to get something off of the floor and then comfortably and confidently and stably get back up again. Their vocabulary starts increasing, so you'll hear more words that you can recognize and make sense of, but it also still comes with a lot of babble as they learn to form words, make sounds, and kind of figure out how to do this talking thing. They start understanding basic instructions and commands, and at this age they should be able to follow and actually obey a one-step instruction, like bring me your bottle, or put that down, or fetch your shoes. These one-step instructions will start being obeyed at this age. They'll start feeding themselves small pieces of food, and this is where a pincer grasp starts, which is grasping the item of food between their index fingers and their thumbs, and this is where the use of the thumb actually becomes pronounced, and they do have control over the thumb. So a pincer grasp starts developing here, and it's really good for them to feed themselves because this helps in dexterity development. From the ages between 12 and 18 months, they should be weaning off of bottles, pacifiers, and all these sucky thingies and be able to drink from a cup independently. They start showing interest in books and start turning pages, but not yet one page at a time. They observe you reading books to them and they mimic the fact that they have seen you turn pages, so they will attempt it but not necessarily get one page at a time just yet. They start mimicking the uses of everything that they see. This goes back to my observational learning episode last week. So at this age, you'll start seeing them mimicking the use of toothbrushes, of hairbrushes, of phones. They'll start writing or scribbling. They'll start pretending that they're cooking. They'll start pretending that they're feeding themselves with a cutlery utensil. These kind of behaviors are very common and to be expected from a child between the ages of 12 and 18 months. Lots of touching and exploring everything, opening stuff, closing stuff, climbing onto stuff, you name it, they are doing it. And again, they probably think their name is No at this point. They also start assisting in getting dressed and undressed. If you're putting their top on, for example, and you've put it over their heads, they'll start bringing an arm out to assist in getting the arm into the sleeve so you don't have to do all the work anymore. Off we go into the 18 to 24 month age bracket. Balls are fun. This is where they learn to kick and throw with increasing stability. They start attempting to jump at this age. It looks more like a gallop at first, but eventually they get both feet off the ground and they start jumping. They start feeding themselves with cutlery. You can expect a mess, and I encourage you to allow and encourage the mess that they will make. They will start sucking through a straw. They will start opening and closing things more to explore. So having a child-proof house at this point is highly recommended. However, I do also suggest that you give an allowance. So if you are child-proofing all cupboards and all doors, leave doors and drawers. leave one for them to be able to explore with plastic stuff in, or at least unbreakable stuff, or a bottom drawer where they can unpack clothing. In the kitchen, a bottom drawer that has stuff that will not hurt them in, that they can open and make a bit of a mess and see what's inside and explore and discover. It's so important for them. More words start developing now, lots and lots of words. They start figuring out what they want, so they'll start pointing to something or pulling you towards something. And this is non-verbal communication, but communication nonetheless. Mess, mess, mess. That is what you can expect from an 18 to 24-month-old toddler. Mess. So it's good to start introducing responsibility, picking up their toys and putting away. It is a responsibility and a chore that they can handle and are able to do. They start mimicking and having turns to play. So fantasy play and pretend play becomes very evident at this age. Because of how observant they are, they start exhibiting behaviors that they've seen in the form of fantasy or pretend play. This is going to take us into that 2 to 3 year old mark. Now we start speaking in full sentences. We start testing boundaries. We start being very assertive and adamant when we know what we want. And this basically is what the 2 to 3 year old age is about. I have heard people call it the terrible twos and the threen ages, and it pretty much is that, but realistic expectation would tell you that it's not a terrible thing and it's not a teenage thing, but at this age they start figuring the world out. They start testing boundaries. They start asking questions. They start finding their place in the world. And this age group takes a lot of patience. And we will get into that more in next week's episode. Stay tuned and make sure you come back next week. I'm going to call this a cliffhanger and end our episode right there. I will see you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the parenting. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, feedback, or content suggestions, please email us at Taryn@theparenting.com. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and give my aunt a 5-star rating. Come back again next week.